So, you come here often? Hello, fellow internet enjoyers. Welcome to another part of Ramblings of a Simple Warlock, a series which follows Arbe the Warlock on his journey through World of Warcraft Classic on the anniversary servers, hopefully reaching level 60 for the first time, all the while rambling on and on about the things he encounters along the way. I'm just realizing I never actually said that out loud last time. Speaking of last time, in case you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend checking that out first. A link should be somewhere on screen right now, hopefully. However, if you just want the TLDR, it is as follows. Arbe the gnome warlock was slowly brought into his unfortunate existence on the Spine Shatter PvP anniversary server, as I babbled on ceaselessly in the background, and dumped into the world of Azeroth to begin his classic WoW journey. We got the authentic launch night Coldridge Valley experience, complete with server lag, fighting bitterly over resources, and just general chaos and anarchy. But we managed to weasel our way through the mess, reached level 5, and escaped the frozen hellhole into the wider Dunmerrow, accompanied by our new companion, Geltic the Imp. Now in the dwarven town of Karanos, Arbe the Warlock is raring to continue his adventure, and anxiously awaiting whatever misfortune might cross his path. That brings us up to speed and lays out all the plot we need at this point, allowing me to thankfully spare us both another aggravatingly long intro. Let's jump right back into it. So, as I see it right now, I have two options before me. I could pick up the quest in Karanos and continue adventuring in Dunmerrow, which would involve culling the local wildlife, exterminating some pesky cave dwellers, and dealing with the angry locals. Or I could set a course for warmer lands and journey to the human starting zone of Elwynn Forest, to cull the local wildlife, exterminate some pesky cave dwellers, and deal with the angry locals. And well, yes, technically there is also a third option, going to Teldrassil, the Night Elf starting area. But I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the place. From what I remember, questing there has always felt like it had an extra touch of sluggishness to it. And as it is on the other continent, I would have to board a ship that sails over there. Unfortunately, this is not Wrath of the Lich King, where spoiled kids like me could just take a ship from Stormwind to get there. Oh no, I would have to journey all the way past Dunmerrow, through Loch Modan, to Menethil Harbour in the wetlands, which could potentially be a recipe for all kinds of disasters. At best, we would have to sneak past monsters of levels up to their mid-20s, desperately praying we do not fail our stealth checks. At worst, we could come face to face with bloodthirsty horde players passing by, or waiting to ambush. The wetlands are contested territory, and due to that whole PvP server business, this means that we are automatically flagged for PvP once we enter them, allowing any trigger-happy Zugzug to crush us like the pathetic level 5 crook we are. Yeah, I don't particularly fancy going through that just to endure Indigo Elven Limbo. Though I guess you could say things become more lit there eventually. In the end, as you might have guessed, I opt to travel to Elwynn Forest. Like many others out there, I consider the human starting areas to be some of the best in the game, and I generally enjoy the questing experience over there. With some exceptions, but more on that when we get there. I also have more nostalgia for those zones, having spent more time in them when I first played the game. And since nostalgia is like the primary sponsor of this silly little adventure, I have no choice but to bow to its every whim. With that determined, I head towards Ironforge, the dwarven capital city, so I can take the deeper tram to Stormwind, the human capital city. As I make my way past the grand gates and into the city proper, I am mildly flabbergasted by just how empty it is. Like, seriously, it's a ghost town. Mind you, this is still during the first night of the server launching, when Coldridge Valley was absolutely packed, so I was kind of expecting to see at least some people in here. I guess I'm either on an empty lair or people are just out there vigorously grinding or something. While I'm here, I try to get my few remaining brain cells to agree on what professions I should be picking up. I was leaning towards herbalism and alchemy for a while, but ultimately settled on mining and engineering. Now, admittedly, part of me just wants to see if engineering is as good as people make it out to be, as everybody seems to like picking it in Classic. But I'm also just looking forward to the potentially very fun items it's gonna provide us with later on, which I'm hoping will lead to some interesting shenanigans. I'm most likely gonna regret this in the future. There's one thing I do remember about engineering, it's that it can be a bloody headache to level. That said, I decide for the time being to only learn mining, in order to avoid having to spend the extra money on engineering before actually having any materials to craft anything with it. I trained the mining skill and am about to continue on my merry way when I remember that, in order to actually mine deposits, I will need a mining pick in my inventory. I cannot afford a mining pick. This is my life. Yeah, financial instability strikes once more. We are at least granted the ability to track minerals, so any nearby mineable nodes will appear on the minimap, which will only serve to taunt me until I can afford that mining pick. Anyways, I pass through Tinkertown and allow Arbe a moment to observe what little remains of his kind in this tiny refugee district. But he is not here to care about them, he is here to nonchalantly emigrate to greener pastures. The dwarves and gnomes have proved to be unhinged brutes. It is time to get out of this place and hopefully find more civilized people. So, under the contemptuous gaze of our unfortunate fellows, I bolted towards the tram. I hop on the tram as soon as it arrives, and would you look at that? It appears we are not the only ones craving escape. The tram ride itself feels like an uncomfortably long elevator ride, where you're just sitting there with somebody you don't know, in this case, a mage of all things, desperately trying not to make eye contact and being consumed by the awkward silence. At least we get to catch a glimpse of Nessie in the underwater section. It's always a good sign in my books. I march into Stormwind City, the grand human capital, trying not to think about the legality of our immigrant status. I spend very little time here, but enough to get caught off guard by trade chat. Ew, Germans. Germans? You mean furries? What? What is this, dude? What is this? Talk to the Griffin Master to discover the flight path, so I can fly to and from Stormwind later, and realize my current total wealth basically equals a single flight to Ironforge. And have a charming encounter with a fellow gnome warlock in foreign lands. We may be primitive brutes, but hey, we occasionally have our moments. We part ways as we exit into Elwynn Forest, with me making my way to the town of Goldshire, where I can finally start questing again. I am greeted by pouring rain, which makes the journey there kind of nice and peaceful. It's a very chill atmosphere. Enjoy it while it lasts, little Arbe. Reaching Goldshire, I pick up the available quests and make a quick stop at one of the coziest inns in the game. As long as you're not playing on a role-playing server. This place will be our new home for the time being. With that, the stage is set and we are ready to roll. The Elwynn Forest play may now commence. The first act of our Elwynn adventure centers around the area surrounding Goldshire, particularly the Fargo Deep mine to the south and the farms nearby it. All three of my current quests can be done in the mine, so that will be my first destination. One quest simply requires me to venture deep enough inside the mine to investigate, while the other two require me to pillage gold dust and candles from the witless kobolds. Said kobolds are not particularly keen on parting with their treasures, so, as usual, we very much have to unalive them in the process.
Now take candle,
they say, but warlocks aren't exactly known to care for the cries of the innocent now, are they? I don't think Arbe is a particularly evil warlock though, just a bit of a naive one. doesn't really comprehend the gravity of the actions he is sometimes roped into taking. There are still a fair amount of people nearby, so the number of kobolds available to murder at any given time is a bit limited. It does, however, make delving into the mine to investigate quite straightforward and effortless. Taking advantage of the still pretty high respawn rates, I just pick a nice spot outside to, you guessed it, camp kobolds. It's at this point that mobs start getting a bit more tough and take longer to kill. Like, my shadow bolts are barely making a dent in them, so the whole process is very mana hungry, which regrettably results in Geltek's untimely demise. Good thing we can just call demons back. No sweet release of death for you, buddy. Classic WoW mechanics also start to shine a bit, particularly mobs having a chance to resist spells. Like here I get into a somewhat tight spot because this kobold starts resisting my spells, I'm low on mana, and to top it off, my astonishingly abominable lack of awareness causes me to pull another kobold. I am gradually getting smacked here, but boom, level 6. And just like that, my sorry skin is saved. This guy here is really echoing what we're all thinking. Overall, I managed to wrap up the kobold items without too much trouble, and back to Goldshire I go. I turn in the quests, sell some junk, man, that's satisfying, and now I need to see the Warlock trainer. Luckily, there is one right here in Goldshire, casually lurking in the basement with his totally not shady looking cohort, probably leeching off the completely unmonitored beer kegs. I am able to learn Life Tap, an instant cast spell that sacrifices a bit of my HP and converts it into mana, a great way to fuel my spell casting both in and out of combat, but I need to be careful using it, as it can and will kill me. I also learned the second rank of Shadow Bolt, providing me with a stronger version of the spell. I should mention, one of the rewards from the Kobold quest was the Bag of Marbles, a usable item that has the potential to come in handy in sticky situations. This officially commences the saga of me dumping random items onto my action bar that I'm unlikely to ever use or even properly keybind. Since they have limited charges, I'm gonna want to save them for when I really need them, meaning they will probably be gathering dust until I'm level 60. I already know that this is gonna bother some people, and I'm so sorry guys. I thankfully also remembered to buy the mining pick, as I can finally afford it now. This means that I can start mining copper and should be on the lookout for it while adventuring. Next, I make my way towards the two farms, one belonging to the Stonefields and the other to the McClures. Now, these two families, for whatever reason, really have it in for each other, and like the good little gnome we are, we get to meddle in their affairs and hopefully cause more problems than we solve. First, we have Auntie Bernice Stonefield and the case of the stolen necklace. With the gutter snipe, Billy McClure being the prime suspect. Gutter snipe? I've never heard that word before, what the hell? I track down this Billy to interrogate him, but the little shit won't cough up anything about the necklace until he is fed pork belly pie. This is how it's gonna be now, is it? I naturally proceed to slaughter the McClure's own boars to get the meat required, because that apparently is just fine. Also, this guy just casually flexes about obtaining 3 bags already, while I'm here just screaming on the inside. Zoom in on my crippling lack of inventory space. It is a problem I can kind of deal with for the time being, but is only going to get worse later on unless I do something about it. Anyways, I obtain enough meat and take it back to Bernice so she can make the pie. Boom! Level 7. I second the sentiment, Bernice. I really do. Pie in hand, back to Billy I go, and not only does he basically confess to thievery, but also reveals that he's been one-upped in the act by a kobold named Goldtooth, who resides deep in the Fargo Deep mine. If I want the necklace, I need to go take Goldtooth out myself. Perhaps I could have delayed the kobold quests from earlier until now, since this one takes me back to the same place. I venture back into the mine, and luckily it is still pretty thoroughly cleared out by all the players around, so I don't really have to find my way through. I reach Goldtooth's lair and wait for him to respawn. While doing so, a regular kobold respawns instead, and I decide to take him out first since he's kind of in the way. Unfortunately, Goldtooth himself also respawns seconds later. In a panic, I rush to attack him as well before somebody else can grab him. With 2 mobs seriously hampering my ability to cast spells, it looks like I might be in trouble. I managed to take out the lesser vermin and scramble to team up with this mage here at the last minute. Once more, my sorry skin is unjustifiably saved. With the case of the stolen necklace closed, we now have the case of the forbidden lovers. Mabel McClure wants to be with Tommy Joe Stonefield over here, but due to the whole family feud business, we need to find an out-of-the-box solution to make that happen. This solution being providing Mabel with an invisibility liquor so she can slip away from her family unnoticed. To do so, we need to obtain kelp fronds from the Murlocs of Crystal Lake. So, I don't know what it is about Murloc-related collection quests in Classic, but they always seem to have pretty abysmal drop rates, and this one is no exception. Admittedly, it's nowhere near as terrible as some other quests later down the line, but I swear it still feels a lot worse compared to most other quests in Elwynn. At least it provides an opportunity to gather some copper. I have pretty terrible luck to start with, struggling to find more than a single kelp frond. I even have another close call at one point, as I get ambushed by a second Murloc while in the middle of fighting one and being low on mana. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. Fortunately, I get saved yet again, this time by a merciful warrior. Thank you, kind person, for rescuing me from my own incompetence. Here, I'll help you out with that one as a token of my appreciation. And I guess that must have pleased the RNG gods or something, because eventually the last 3 kelp fronds just drop in succession. Damn. As such, I get my hands on the invisibility liquor, allowing Mabel to sneak off into the night and closing the case of the forbidden lovers. Lastly, we have the case of the gluttonous pig. The Stonefield matron's ire isn't limited just to the McClures, but extends also to the Brackwells, whose precious porcine princess has been gorging on her veggies. Naturally, the only acceptable response is the death penalty, so we are tasked with assassination. This really has been shifting from a redneck drama into some caricature of a crime episode. Due to the higher level of the quest, and since the Brackwell's pumpkin patch is all the way to the east, this will have to be a task for later. I make a quick detour to Stormwind to deliver a shipment and boom! Level 8. This presents a perfect opportunity to see the Warlock trainer as well, so off I go to the Mage Quarter, into the Slaughtered Lamb Inn, and down to the basement. Seriously, what is it with Warlock trainers hiding out in the basement of inns? I pick up Curse of Agony, an instant cast dot that starts slow and ramps up, becoming stronger towards the end of its duration, and probably the signature Warlock ability, Fear, a crowd control spell that sends enemies running. While it is going to be extremely useful, it's another spell I must take care with, as for example it can break due to damage or cause mobs to run into others and aggro them as well. As I'm in the city, I opt to go learn the first aid secondary profession to give myself another source of minor healing, and also finally train engineering. And since I'm not following a guide on leveling it or anything, you can bet that this will be a grueling, inefficient process. Cue in a mindless crafting session. I do get some bombs out of it at least. Lastly, I surrender to the temptation of a slight inventory expansion and buy a linen bag off the auction house, giving me some more space to work with. Before I burn away what little money I have left, I skedaddle out of the city and embark on the next part of the journey. The second act of our Elwynn adventure takes place around the eastern reaches of the forest, with the Eastvale logging camp acting as a sort of a minor hub. On the way over there, I stop by the Jasperlode mine, where I must also venture within to investigate. There are just enough players around to keep the few living kobolds occupied, making this investigation just as painless and uneventful as the first one. I then report to guard Thomas here by the bridge, who wants us to search for some other guards that went missing. And also aid in the local wolf and bear extinction efforts. Reaching the logging camp, we are additionally tasked with pillaging some bandanas under the irresistible allure of a shiny new shirt. This will mark our first of many run-ins with the Defias Brotherhood, a notorious gang of criminals causing all sorts of trouble around the human territory. Oh yeah, we also have to pick up some wood. Moving on. I first tried to locate the missing guards. Sure enough, it is eventually apparent that the pair has met an untimely, fishy end at the hands of the Murlocs, with what remains of Malachi lingering on the southern shore of the Stone Cairn Lake, and Rolf's mangled carcass discarded on the edge of the Murloc village. Once I report on the guards' gruesome fate, I fully commit myself to wildlife extermination. It takes a hot minute, as there's plenty of other relentless butchers stalking the area. I can almost taste the bloodlust in the air. With a mountain of animal corpses left in our wake, we redirect our bloodthirst towards our next prey, the bandits. Remember the Brackwolves I mentioned a while ago? For one reason or another, their pumpkin patch has not a single farmer in sight, but is instead packed with the Defias. The hunt for bandanas is on. Unsurprisingly, I am not the only person to have had that brilliant idea, as the place is considerably swarmed. I soon realize I need to employ my previous tactics once again, and settle on claiming a little spot to camp respawns. After Coldridge Valley, Arbe is practically an alpha predator. This will be a cakewalk. Boom! Level 9. It doesn't take too long before the hunt is concluded. There is one more thing that must be carried out before I can leave. The assassination of Her Royal Highness, Princess. Now, again, there are a lot of people out to get her porkiness, so I sort of just bide my time until the right moment to strike presents itself. I need to be careful pulling her, as she comes with 2 loyal subjects that normally aggro when she is attacked. I eventually team up with a warrior and throw a somewhat well-timed explosive as Princess respawns, managing to pull her with only one of her subjects aggroed. The other, understandably, just pretends nothing happened. I would do the same, buddy. We successfully commit the regicide, thus fulfilling our assassination contract. I now have to run around all over the forest to turn in all the quests I have, stopping by the logging camp, Goldshire, and the Stonefield farm. Ultimately, I am sent right back to the logging camp to be rewarded with some armor. Classic really likes making you run around. I imagine poor Arbe's feet must be hurting quite a bit by now. Whatever. There apparently is also a Murloc bounty quest that opened up close by. So eastwards bound I am once more, getting a swanky new robe from the logging camp, and accepting to undergo retaliatory Murloc genocide. And of course, the Murloc quest drop rate rules apply yet again. Eight fins are demanded as proof of the deed, and this takes a while. Like, Arbe must somehow manage to char away anything resembling fins from 90% of the Murlocs he slaughters, because these
just refuse to drop.
I kill Murloc after Murloc after Murloc after Murloc, undoubtedly axing off several generations and family trees, and almost reaching level 10 in the process before I finally manage to get all 8 fins. All that's left is to claim the bounty and that sweet, sweet level up. Boom! Level 10. As that pretty much marks the end of Act 2, it's a good enough place as any to start cooling down and rein things in for this part. So, I slowly make my return to Goldshire and reflect upon the journey thus far. I think you really start to get more of a feel of what leveling in Classic is like during the 5 to 10 bracket of the starting areas. Like, the game is still going easy on us, but it is beginning to send us back and forth across the zone, things take longer to kill, the leveling speed slows down a bit, and drop rates become more uncooperative. It is basically a sign of things to come, as the game will only continue bearing its teeth from here on out and gradually dial all of these things up to 100. But even so, despite my incessant whining, I'm really having a good time here. Not only just going through the adventure itself, but also plastering this silly narrative on top as I stitch videos together. And we're only just getting started, so hopefully there's plenty more of this nonsense to come. Before we close the curtains, however, there is one final thing to do here, which is what I'm gonna call reaping the rewards of Act 2. Once I reach Goldshire, I make one last visit to the Warlock trainer here to get a whole bunch of goodies. New ranks for both Immolate and Demon Skin, as well as learning Drain Soul, a channeled spell with a special effect. If whatever target I'm using it on dies while it is active, and said target yields XP or honor, I receive a Soul Shard, a reagent item that refuses to stack and will greatly contribute to my inventory management issues. But it makes up for it by fueling a whole bunch of important Warlock abilities, such as the final spell I learn right now, Create Minor Healthstone. This conjures a consumable item that can instantly heal me for a solid chunk of HP when used, basically a healing potion that does not share a cooldown with the actual healing potions, which is fantastic. More importantly, however, I get sent to speak with the Warlock trainer in Stormwind, marking the start of the process to learn to summon our next demon, the Voidwalker. Exciting times indeed. Lastly, once in the big city again, I burn away most of my money on a shopping spree to get 3 more bags and enjoy that vastly increased inventory space, as well as a wand, our first green quality item and a slightly overdue investment which should allow me to level far more efficiently. I cannot think of a better reward for dealing with, and maybe causing some of, the mayhem in the forest. So this is where I leave you today, friends. We'll pretend that, now that he's marginally better equipped, Arbe takes a break here in order to plot his next steps. But trust me, with that shiny new wand in hand, he's barely containing himself from going right back out there to Avada some cadavers. Once again, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Arbe's adventure will hopefully continue soon enough, and if you do decide to rejoin us, we'll be wrapping up the short final act of Elwynn Forest and venturing beyond. I totally did not just make up this act structure, guys. It's legit, trust me, yeah. Some of the things you can expect to see include coercing friendship through violence, confronting the local big shots, and explaining that one preview from the end of the last episode that I did not have time to cover here. Alrighty then, guys. Until next time, have a good one.
Daylight's burning.